Welcome to Clubhouse with a review of the Bandai non-grade 1-20 Rick DS, which is actually not discontinued from Bandai, but you really don't see them get reprinted very often at all. The one right here is a very old stock from around the 90s, so this is a rare chance for me to show you guys an example from this short-lived 1-20 line from Z Gundam. So let's talk about the history of this odd scale that was never seen again after Z Gundam. The scale of 1-20 wasn't picked for any aesthetic reasons, but it was a logical result of Bandai wanting kits at the entry-level price point of 300 yen. The 0079 1144 kits were mostly 300 yen, and Bandai felt that was a sweet spot for younger fans at the time. Rising production costs and the relative increased complexity of the kits in 1985 meant that the 1144 kits could no longer fit into that 300 yen budget. The cheapest 1144 kit in the Zeta line was the Gym 2, and that was 400 yen before taxes, but it was the only one at that price, with most of the others being 500 yen before taxes, and the most expensive ones like the Methis and the Hammurabi costing 700 yen. So rather than trying to put toothpaste back into the tube and make the 1144 kits cheaper, Bandai instead created a line of smaller kits that would fit better into their beloved 300 yen price point. Now Bandai didn't go into this without a plan. You'd think that the Mark II or the Z Gundam or the Hakushiki would be the first products they released because those are pretty popular, right? But looking at the line here, the first kit released was the Messala, which didn't even make the 300 yen target. And it took them 2 more months before the Ashimar came as a second release. You see, the Messala and the Ashimar are kind of big, right? And they seem like a sensible choice to make them in a smaller scale. So that's how Bandai made the 1-220 line legitimate to fans, rather than having it simply as the bottom of the barrel option for people with no money. And as a bit of a footnote, the Mark II in this line came with a bazooka, which the 1144 Gundam Mark II didn't. You had to buy the weapon set to get that. So this smaller one managed to outclass the bigger version a little bit, and that's a hint at things to come for our Rick DS kit. And in case you're not too persuaded that these kits were meant for younger fans, and trust me, a lot of fans don't think they are, and they argue about this from time to time, the kits in the 1-20 line were all snap-fit model kits. We tend to forget about this, but this too was a specific feature that had to be designed into kits at the time, and all the other kits in the 1-144 line and the 1-100 line still needed glue. These smaller kits were made for new fans, and they were designed to be as accommodating as possible. Returning to our kit, the Rick DS was released in December 1985, and it sold for 300 yen before taxes. The box art here was drawn by Kenichi Ishibashi, and the box is a demure 13 by 19 by 4 centimeters. The short side of the box counts this as the 35th release in the entire Z Gundam line, and the box art here has the background removed for a cleaner look. The long side here shows you some of the accessories that we get, and then the other side is vertical with the in-universe details about the kit and studio shots of the Rick DS being really stiff. Inside the box, we have to talk about another relic from the 90s. Bandai kits up to the late 90s all had stapled bags like this rather than the heat-sealed ones that we see today. If you're an older model fans, you will remember this immediately, and basically all Bandai kits used to have stapled bags. And in case you're dying inside while you see me open the bag like this as if I'm killing a unicorn or something, don't worry. The store I got this kit from has like 1 billion of these kits left. I mean, really, no one wants them other than me. This is not the last of its kind by a long stretch. And if you buy a reprinted one, yours will have a date stamp on one of these 2 runners, and mine doesn't have it at all because mine was from the time before Bandai had to do that, so I also have no idea when my particular kit left the factory. There's this little blue strip for a store to reorder some more stock from Bandai, so these were sometimes taken by the store if you lived in Japan. This is also something else that's now been phased out in newer kits since no store is gonna order their stock by mail. For the instructions, we have the classic painting guide on the front that also acts as the runner's list too. And inside we get the rest of the colored area used to tell us about the Rick DS and the animation. And the black and white side is all for assembly instructions even back in 1985. After a bit over half an hour, we get the completed Rick DS, and just take a moment to take in all the details sculpted onto this kit that just cost 300 yen, like the pipes that run along each side of the head, or the head itself with the beautiful mono eye, Or how about these crazy pipes on the side skirt that have the hole underneath them that's not filled in with plastic? The same goes with the back of the knees with these similar tubes, and these parts even slip inside the lower legs when you bend the knee. Just about the only real cost related issue with how it looks are the hollow inner sides of the random binders, which really are kind of ugly, but honestly we expected the kit to be like this all over the place, but in the end it's limited to only these two parts. And the nice sculpting falls a little bit short of the hands here, which are really blocky and abstract, though we'll still be getting these blocky hands all through the 90s, so this will be the norm for many years to come still. Of course, as you can see, the entire kit is molded in nothing but red, but I bet this is more or less what you expected. Gunpla or Gundam models with color accuracy and color separation won't be in any mainstream Gundam model until the Char's counterattack line in 1987, which is still 2 years away from this kit. What's a bit more painful and a reminder of the age and the price of the kit right here is where the head is molded directly into the torso, so there's absolutely no movement here. It continues downwards where the waist and all the skirt armor is molded as a part of the torso, and this is going to come back to haunt us a little bit later. But yes, as a cost saving measure, this kit's complexity is cut way down with this one piece continuous torso that goes from the head down to the hip. For weapons, we get the clay bazooka, which is one single piece and not two parts sandwiched together. They managed to get the asymmetric shape here with the hook of the gun that's off to one side. You can see the detail and the panel lines that they dotted throughout the gun to break up the long and boring shapes, and this side of the gun sadly has some shrinkage along the surface because this is one single molded piece. There is a small circle here that's dug out to save a little bit of plastic. It has to go into the hands from the outside like this. Old kits really couldn't hold the bazookas very well at all, and the Rick Diaz here basically can't hold the gun in any sort of reasonable firing position. You can try to tuck the gun into the inner side, but the gun will get jammed by the torso, so it doesn't work at all this way. And weapon number 2 are the beam pistols that's mounted on the back here, which are really well sculpted because you might expect the shape to be simpler and more abstract as the kit gets smaller, but all the details are here like the really thin gun barrels. The guns here can be adjusted on their pegs, and they can also be pulled off the rack like this. But you don't actually need to do this at all because even though this is a budget kit, they give you an entire separate pistol for holding and for display. The mounted version can still be put into the blocky hand like this, but it sits inside the hole completely loose, and sadly, the other pistol turns out to be nearly the same. So this story has a bit of a sad ending, and the pistol can't really be practically used, and you're not going to be seeing them in the hands for the rest of the video. But we're still not done with weapons because 300 yen even gives us the beam saber, and the mounted version is actually sculpted into the rack on the back right here, even though the handle part on the back seems to be done wrong. The beam saber is the Z Gundam era style with the flared out head, and the beam blade is only lightly tapered, so it looks a bit like a rod, so you're gonna have to sand it down a little bit to get the right shape. It goes into the hand like you expect, and unlike the pistol, it fits fine, though the fixed fist will make the swinging motion look really stiff and really awkward. On to the articulation. We already know that the head isn't going to move, and the waist and the skirt armor are all welded together, so we can skip all of that. The shoulders actually have a little bit of swing forward and backwards here, which is from the slack between the peg and the hole, but this is absolutely something you can use. There is an additional joint here that gives it an outward swing. It's not a lot, but it is an improved design over previous one-year war kits. The arm can swing around a full circle without too much trouble. The elbow can bend just a little bit, but it can do it. There's no rotation on the biceps or anywhere, and that sadly locks the elbow bend into this awkward angle. The random binders can rotate on their pegs. The legs actually swing side to side, and this is absolutely an intentional design because many one-year war kits have this same construction, but they lock it in place with a notch. The legs kick forward this much, and it's trapped by the fixed skirt armor. They kick backwards not a whole lot either. And the leg bend doesn't help make this much better, unfortunately. From the articulation, you'll really feel this kit's age, and the articulation really is quite primitive. On the one hand, it's an incremental improvement over the one-year war kits, but it's still not enough to properly hold the bazooka and the sword, so it's hard in any context to say that this is very good. Of course, it isn't anything unusual for 1985, but if you see this reprint today and you buy one, at best you can forgive the articulation and you can understand it for what it is. For a simple size comparison, here's the entry grade RX-78 to give you an idea of how petite a 1-2-20 kit is. And while the articulation wasn't that impressive, the size here actually makes this kit really charming, especially for painters and builders who might enjoy this smaller kit and all its more condensed details. With all that said, here's a Hobby Clubhouse 3-point verdict on the Bandai non-grade 1-2-20 Rig DS. Number 1, it has a beautiful sculpt despite its age. And I really don't mean that it's just good for its time. The Rig DS here is one kit that any modern fan will love just as much, especially when you'd expect a small and cheap kit to be condensed into a blurry and blobby mess. But no, this kit is objectively good enough that I'm sure some builders watching this will be really excited to get one to work on and paint. Like I mentioned just before, the condensed detail gives this kit a really unique charm that you won't get with any other Rig DS kit out there right now. And number 2, it has a lot of weapons you can't use. It's pretty shocking that this has the full arsenal of the Rig DS, and that separate beam pistol is just not something a budget kit should have had, and it's just borderline bad business practice to give you so much in an entry level kit because it's really starting to make the bigger kits look bad. But the variety is where the fun stops because basically none of the weapons really work, mostly due to the articulation, which is number 3. The articulation is from 1985. Now I know here at Hobby Clubhouse we're kind to old kits, but it's just a fact that the articulation is the biggest limiting factor on this kit, whether it's posing the kit or even just holding the weapons or really doing much of anything with it. The sort of silver lining to this is that this wasn't because this kit was 300 yen. If you buy any Z Gundam kits from the time, they're all like this. So if anything, we can cheat a little here and say that this is proof that this kit is actually better than it has any reason to be. So that's a review of the 1-2-20 Rig DS, which will be our ambassador for the short-lived 1-2-20 line. Basically, the designers gave you a full course meal at a $1 menu price, with a kit that's well equipped and it doesn't need gluing, and it's no worse than any of the more expensive counterparts wait, is that why they didn't continue this line? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Come look us up on social media with updates on upcoming videos and sneak peeks at future projects, links in the description below. Or hang out here some more with one of these other videos. But before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to be notified of new videos from Hobby Clubhouse, and I'll see you next time.